Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
OAA Now Football Preview Show. This is the Blue Division. I am Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA. Host of Last Three Brain Cells and the host Tween Terminas on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on YouTube and those watching on Orion Television, and also those on SoundCloud. Last time we were here, we previewed the Gold Division with Kettering, including Kettering and Mott. This week we have the Blue Division. The next we will have the White Division, followed by the Red Division. This week we are talking the OAA Blue, which is a 7-team conference. Of course, last year won by North Farmington, and we'll see what happens heading into the division. We're going to start off with our first team, which is the Red Hawks of Troy Athens. You look at this team last year, a lot of struggle. I mean, they've made a lot of changes, hired a new offensive coordinator. They got a lot of senior experience coming back. So here's Coach Tom Cook at the podium talking about the Red Hawks.
Hello. First off, I want to say thank you to Coach Vernon and Rochester High School for putting this event on every year. It's fantastic. I know that it's a lot of work, especially when you're waiting on somebody that's late with their submission for the packet. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the OAA football programs, the coaches, the players. I believe this is some of the best football in the state of Michigan, and it's because of the work that everybody in this room puts in. And I'm proud to compete in this league, week in and week out. So thank you. Today we brought some of the finest senior leaders that we've ever had come through our program, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves before I tell you a little bit more about them.
Grayson Conrad, senior running back D. Katie Dunlap, senior quarterback linebacker. Ian Hanbury, senior running back linebacker.
Nathan Piggott, tight end.
Max Lee, linebacker running back. Vicky Mundy, East line.
This senior group, really since they came in as freshmen, have transformed what our program looks like. They've done it just with an incredible work ethic and really embracing the grind. They've done that same thing this summer. There's been a lot of work to go in this summer, both physically and mentally, just with a few added items to our playbook. They're ready for a great season. We're excited to compete, in a tough OAA schedule, and we kick it off with Seaholm, week 1. So good luck to all of you. Thank you again. Stay healthy this season. Go Hawks.
When you look at Athens this year, they got a lot of experience coming back and a lot of optimism with this team. So I caught up with Coach Tom Cook to talk about that expectation and the excitement surrounding Troy Athens football. All right. I got the coach of the Red Hawks, Coach Tom Cook here. Coach, you looking at the senior class, real heavy group. So talk about how the senior class is going to, hopefully get you guys in the playoffs the first time since 2011.
Yeah, we were just talking to them during one of the workouts. They've really, since they came in, worked to kind of transform how we look physically. 4 years ago when they were freshmen, we were talking about our varsity team had only a couple guys that were lifting certain amounts of weights, for squat, bench, deadlift, that type of thing. And we've more than quadrupled that with this group, and they've done it through just hard work for the 4 years that they've been here, and so they're hungry for it, and I wouldn't put anything past these guys. So we're hoping for good things this season, and they're gonna work to achieve the what they set out to do way back when.
How about that schedule? It's a very interesting schedule. 7 league games and then, of course, 2 non-league games. So talk about that schedule.
Yeah, it's a mostly OAA schedule, and like I just said up there, this is some of the best football in the state of Michigan. So we start with one of our toughest opponents. Our crossover with the Red is we start with one of our toughest opponents in Seaholm. our crossover with the red, Oxford, these are everybody in the OAA plays a real deal schedule. Our Fraser is going to be much improved this year. For talking about how we end the season on a out of league game, and they'll be much improved with a new coach over there. But we're looking forward to a grind. Like you said, these seniors are hungry for some success, and we know there are going to be some close games. We played several close games last year, and came up on the losing end on a few of them. But we're looking to turn the tide hopefully this year.
What are your expectations here, Coach?
I don't like to talk about some of the things that I'm a superstitious guy, so some of the things that I don't know if I like to put it out in the public. The kids know, what my expectations are. Let me just tell you, their expectations that they've set for themselves is to make the playoffs and win the blue. So,
thank you very much, Coach.
Yep.
I also had a podcast interview with Coach Cook. I will have that on the blog at Saginaway4650 at blogspot.com. If you want to listen in to Coach Cook's podcast, it's also on the Orion Neighborhood Television YouTube page as well. When you look at Athens this year, a lot of experiences I mentioned. Nathan Piggott, obviously, star tight end. He's going to Eastern Michigan next year. But when you look at Athens, they got a senior experience. The question is the mentality. Obviously this team's had a lot of struggle. And can this team pick up the next step? And I think, that's going to be something to really watch for, especially with the senior class. When you look at the schedule for Troy Athens, it's daunting. Opening up week 1 with Seaholm. Obviously last year Athens fell to Seaholm. And it was a shocker the way that game went. Obviously you look at Seaholm, of course, they're a team that loves to run the veer. Play time possession football. So it's going to be a really daunting matchup there. So it should be a really interesting game. I think it'll be a really good game. We get games in Birmingham this year, so that should be really interesting. Not sure where that is. I think it's either Birmingham or Troy. I got to figure that one out. Week 2, they play Pontiac. And, obviously Athens and Pontiac, they've had some competitive games in the past. So I think that should be really interesting there. Between those two. Week 3, they take on Oak Park. And obviously last year, that game went to the wire. Oak Park pulled away late, knocked off Athens. Of course, that game is going to be in Night Valley. So it'll be really interesting to see how that one goes there. Week number 4, they take on Farmington. Farmington, we know, has always been a solid program by Coach Jason Albrecht. Week number 5, they take on North Farmington. We know how good the Raiders are. Of course, Athens and North Farmington battled, and it went down the wire in that one, with North winning that one against Athens. Week number 6, they take on Bloomfield Hills. Of course, Scott Merchant's team. That should be a fun matchup there. That should be a really interesting matchup. Of course, Bloomfield Hills is a team it'll be interesting to see where they're at this year. Week number 7, they take on Oxford, and it's going to be a tough matchup. I think it'll be very interesting. Oxford coming from the red. That's going to be a daunting task. It should be a very interesting one to see how that one goes. But Oxford's going to it's going to be a tough one for Athens in that one. Week 8, the rivalry game against Troy. Could this be Athens' year? Troy lost a lot of talent. And that game is at Troy Athens this year. So that should be interesting there. And then week 9, they close out with Fraser. Of course, Athens, I know they know about what happened a couple years ago with arch rival Troy falling at the final buzzer for denying Troy the chance to get the playoffs. But Athens last year, they did beat Fraser. A couple years ago, they beat Fraser. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for Troy Athens. Of course, Fraser got a new coach. For Athens, a lot of excitement for them this year. I got a lot of questions with them as well. So Athens, I think they can surprise some people. I think they could be in the division conversation. I really do. I know in the coaches poll, Athens projected to finish, I think, 5th. I think Athens is better than people think. So we'll see what happens. I think if there's a dark horse team in this division to watch for, it's Troy Athens with the experience they got coming back. New offensive coordinator. Defense is a big concern as well. I forgot to mention that. When I talked to Coach Corliss on the podcast and Tyler Keep, their number one biggest concern with Athens is the defense, and I agree with them. Defense is going to be their biggest concern heading into the year. So we'll see what happens with Troy Athens. Now let's go from a team that's been doing a lot of changeover, and that's the Blackhawks of Bloomfield Hills. When I look at the Blackhawks, last few years, 5-22, last 3 years. That's not good. Dan Laurie, of course, the legendary coach at Bloomfield Hills, stepped down. He's now an assistant at New Baltimore Anchor Bay. So enter Scott Merchant. Of course, Scott Merchant, we know what he brings. He used to be at UD Jesuit. Then he was at Chippewa Valley for 15 years, taking the Big Reds to the playoffs 13 last 15 years. And then served 1 year at Lawrence Tech before coming back into high school coaching to coaching at Bloomfield Hills. So here is Coach Merchant at the podium talking about Bloomfield Hills.
Thank you, Coach Vernon. Thanks to Rochester for hosting this. It's a great event. It's great for the players to get out here, and we thank the media for coming. My name's Scott Merchant. I'm the new head coach at Bloomfield Hills High School. I've been in the MAC, and I've been in the Catholic League, and now being in the OAA, I feel like I've hit the top 3 leagues in the state. So excited to be a part of the OAA. A lot of great teams, a lot of great schools, communities, and some outstanding coaches and players. I'm going to turn it over. We have 3 of our seniors here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I'll finish after that.
My name is Brian, and I play running back and linebacker.
My name is Nolan. I play guard.
I'm Cam, I play linebacker.
All right, and they do all have last names. So this is Brian Snyder. All right, this is Nolan Metz, and this is Cam Harst. All right, 3 of our seniors. We're excited about the future of the program. We have about 40 to 50 freshmen coming out this year, which we're excited about, and we're going to try to grow the program from the bottom up. We got a lot of work to do. The OAA is an extremely competitive conference, and our goal is to compete every week, no matter who we're playing. So that's what we're looking to do this year. Appreciate you guys having us. Stay healthy. Have a great season. Thank you.
When I look at the Blackhawks this year, their biggest question marks this year are going to be at quarterback and wide receiver. Now, they do have a quarterback in the system that has played last season, and I can't remember the name right now, but it's not tip my head. But when I look at Bloomfield Hills this year, I mean, like, they could surprise some people, obviously with Coach Merchant. So I caught up with Coach Merchant to talk about how everything's been going at Bloomfield Hills. I got the coach of the Blackhawks, Coach Scott Merchant here. Coach, how's the transition been going for you?
It's been going well. Yeah, it's not really. I mean, I don't think there's been a ton of difficulties. It's great to be back in high school and love high school football and glad to be a part of it again.
Talk about that schedule. I mean, like, I know you're at Chippewa Valley. Talk about how the schedule is looking for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just concentrating on ourselves. We got to get a lot better, and we open up with Troy, who I think mercied us last year. So we got to get ready for them, and it's a league game right off the bat, week 1. So you don't want to go 0-1, not only to start the season, but to start the conference schedule. So we got a lot of work to get done between now and then.
What is your expectation this year, Coach?
The expectations are we want to be as good as we can be on and off the field. Not to be cliche, but I don't ever really look at like, oh, we should win this many games, and we should our goal as coaches is to push these guys. Obviously, they've struggled the last few years, so I want them to be able to be proud of what they're doing, keep their heads up, and our biggest thing is we want to compete. We want to compete against everybody, and we know if we're competitive or successful in the OAA, then you're going to be a playoff team and you have a chance to do some things.
Thank you very much, Coach.
All right, Sammy.
When you look at the Blackhawks, obviously, I did catch up with Coach Merchant on the podcast. It's on the blog at Saginaw-Bay-4650 at blogspot.com. Also on the Orion Neighborhood Television YouTube page as well. When you look at the schedule for Bloomfield Hills, it's very interesting. opening up the year, week 1 against Troy. Obviously, Troy last year beat Blue Bay Hills pretty badly. It was not fun. It was not a pretty sight. Week 2, they get to play Royal Oak. And, and I think that's an interesting match. I think it's a winnable game for Blue Bay Hills. There's a real possibility that this team could be 2-0 heading into Birmingham Seaholm, which is going to be it's always interesting when you have a close rival really close by. And I think that's going to be a really interesting game with 2 different styles. Obviously, we know what Coach Merchant likes to run. He likes to go more that spread look, obviously. And then, of course, Seaholm, we know that the Veer offense, obviously, time possession football, really stress out your defense. So that should be really interesting there. Week number 4, they take on North Farmington. That could be a really interesting matchup there. Obviously, we know how good North Farmington is athletically. So that should be a really interesting matchup right there. Week 5, they take on Pontiac. It should be an interesting matchup there. 2 teams that are, trying to find their way up, and I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup there. Week 6, they take on Troy Athens. The Red Hawks, they're a good team. It should be a good matchup. I think it'll be a good matchup with 2 teams that are, on the upward swings. Week 7, they take on Farmington. Another difficult matchup. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this one goes. I think both teams look evenly matched on paper. And then week 8, West Bloomfield. Oh boy. When I talked to Tyler Keith about this one, he was really excited about this one. The Battle of Bloomfield. Obviously, I got interviewed by Tyler about the West Bloomfield Blue Bay Hills matchup. So that'll be really interesting as well. I have that on the blog, on the Civic Center TV interview. I will post that up there on the blog as well. And then week 9, they take on Oak Park to close out the year. Blue Bay Hills, Oak Park, both teams almost similar. I think it'll be a really interesting matchup. The coaching matchup will be fun between Coach Merchant and Coach Carter. That should be a really interesting matchup over there between the Blackhawks and the Knights. So when I look at Blue Bay Hills as a team this year, rebuilding a lot, but I think this team is similar to what UAD Jesuit is. It's just mentality-wise, can they get that mentally? Can they improve on that mental mindset of there? And if they can, I think this team can really make some noise. And obviously with Coach Merchant there, they're going to have to go through a transition period, and it's going to have to happen during the year. So for Blue Bay Hills, you know what I mean? There's going to be a learning curve here, and I think, that's going to be, it'll be something to see if Blue Bay Hills can turn it around real quick. Are they capable of doing it? Absolutely, but they got to find some things real quick. Jay Adati, their running back, I think they have a monster year. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes for 1,000 yards this year. It wouldn't surprise me. But they've got to find stability at quarterback. Passing attack, they got to find that. Mason Hitchcock, watch out for him. I think he's one of the players to really watch for with Blue Bay Hills. I think he could be in line for a big year. And then the line, obviously, they got 2 proven linemen back. Questions, though, on the defensive side as well. Last year, defensively, Blue Bay Hills was really bad on the defensive side of the ball. One of the worst defenses in the league last year. So that's something that Merchant's going to have to address. So a lot to look at with Blue Bay Hills. A lot of question marks this year. Can they improve, especially on the defensive side of the football? That's the big question for them going forward. Now we go from Blue Bay Hills. Let's go to the Falcons of Farmington. When you look at Farmington, this is a team that, in their final year in the Lakes Valley Conference, final year in the OAA before they go to the Lakes Valley Conference, they made the playoffs last season. So for Coach Jason Albrecht, it's about how do you replace your quarterback and how do you move forward. So here he is at the podium at Media Day.
Want to thank Coach Vernon and Rochester for having us out again. It's always great coming out for the Media Day. My name is Jason Albrecht. This is my 5th year as head coach at Farmington High School. 3 seniors I brought with me today: Ashwin Suresh Babu, offensive line; John Howell, defensive back; and then Vincent Pacey, quarterback. This year we're really working to not rebuild, but kind of respond to what we did last year in 2024, winning a playoff game and trying to build upon it. We have a great group of kids coming back. We return, I think, 7 kids on offense, or kids that have got a lot of playing time, so we're looking to build upon that this season as well. Always great competition in the OAA, and we play 2 non-conference teams that are pretty balanced as well. So we're looking forward to a successful season. Hope everybody stays healthy. Thank you.
When you look at Farmington, they do got some proven players coming back. Watch for Anthony Bailey. He's one of the guys to really keep an eye on. So I talked to Coach Albrecht on the podcast talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of Farmington football. Before I let you go, Coach, what is your expectations this year for Farmington football in their final year in the OAA?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a battle every week, and, my expectation is, our kids are going to be as prepared as they can be and hopefully execute at a high level. And, I think at that point, I always say, games take care of themselves. But I think it's going to be, it's never an easy road in the OAA. And obviously it's being as it's the last year of it, I don't know if that'll make any difference, or teams want to fight a little harder because of it. But, I'm looking forward to a great year, and hopefully, the wins and losses take care of themselves, and our kids are playing at a very high level.
Okay, we're back here, obviously. When you look at the Farmington this year, they got a lot of proven talent coming back, but a lot of question marks. When you look at the schedule for Farmington, they open up the year with Oak Park, and that is going to be a big, big game. Usually that matchup week 1 always determines how teams and season goes. I mean, obviously Farmington won last year against Oak Park. I think it was 21-7 last year. They shut down Oak Park's offense, and obviously they did lose their quarterback in that game. So it'll be interesting going to Night Valley week 1. That should be a fun matchup. Week 2, you got Holly. And obviously we know the Bronchos, of course, coached by former Berkeley and Troy Athens coach Billy Keenest. They also have former Lake Orion defensive coordinator Dave Tooley over there at Holly. So that should be a really interesting matchup to see how that one goes. Week 3, the Farmington Cup, the rivalry. The Farmington Cup, you compare that maybe with the Battle of Woodward, Double O Trophy. It's one of the best trophy games in the entire league. And I'm really sad to see this trophy game go, because North Farmington and Farmington both leaving the OAA to go to Lakes Valley next year. But always this game has been really competitive. North Farmington has the trophy last year after beating Farmington last year. That game's going to be over at Farmington this year, so that should be a really interesting matchup. Week 4, they take on Troy Athens. Always an interesting game when the Falcons and Red Hawks get together. It always is. Farmington won that game last year, knocking off the Red Hawks. Week number 5, they take on the Maples of Birmingham Seaholm. When I look at this matchup here, this is going to be really interesting. I think that, 2 different styles. Farmington likes to be more of a spread-type team. They will run the ball a lot, too, if they need to. Seaholm will obviously with the veer. So it's going to be really interesting there in that one. Week number 6, they take on Troy. Farmington got the best of Troy last year. It should be a really fun matchup between the Colts and the Falcons. It always is, but, you look at Troy this year, they lost a lot of talent. Farmington did lose their quarterback, so that'll be really interesting there. And then week number 7, they take on Bloomfield Hills. The Blackhawks are it'll be an interesting matchup there. 2 different styles and a good coaching match between Coach Albrecht and Coach Merchant. So that should be really interesting. Week 8, oh boy, they get to go play Clarkson, and that's a difficult matchup. And they get to go to Clarkson. That is just difficult for them. Obviously, defensively, they're going to be in for a big challenge. Offensively, they could be in for a big challenge. So that could be a really, really tough task for Farmington. Going to Clarkson to take on a Wolves team, that's going to be just motivated. And then week number 9, they close out the year with Dearborn Heights Crestwood. Farmington went into Dearborn, won that one. last season to get in the playoffs. Crestwood we know is a solid team, well coached. So it'll be really interesting to see how Farmington does this upcoming season. Are they a playoff team? That's a big question. There's some big question marks. Is Pesci ready to be the guy at quarterback? Is Anthony Bailey ready to take on the next step? Because if Anthony Bailey has to play quarterback, that spells trouble for Farmington heading into the year. So when you look at Farmington as a team, I think that this Farmington team, they could surprise some people, and I think they could really make some headwaves. I know Farmington TV 10 will have a lot of coverage of Farmington football this season, and I look forward to listening to them when they talking about the Falcons as we head into the year. So let's go from Farmington to their arch rival, North Farmington. When you look at the Raiders, this is a team that really has some question marks coming into the year. But when you look at the Raiders, they could surprise some people. So Coach John Herstein was not at Media Day, so he brought his assistant to Media Day to talk about the strength of the Raiders.
Hi, how's it going? So it's my first season on staff with North Farmington, but I'm going to let the seniors introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Owen Barba, senior offensive and defensive lineman.
I'm Terrence James, quarterback and safety.
Noah Cornsman, running back, linebacker.
Awesome. So these guys have been working real hard this off-season to build on last year's success. We came in at 6-3, lost first round of the playoffs, but they worked real hard on the offseason, hopefully to build on and continue success from last year. Thanks.
North Farmington last year was a playoff team, but there has been a lot of talk about Terrence James. Of course, he was at Media Day, possibly changing positions to play wide receiver. North Farmington also has two quarterbacks in Stone Trevino and Elijah Cobb to watch for this year that can make some noise. So I caught up with Coach John Herstein talking about the state of the Raiders program and also that quarterback situation. Do you have a theme this year that you guys are going with?
Just continue on, continue to move forward. That's what we've been talking about all season. Just that, hey, we're moving forward into this season. This repeat as league champs. Going into this season, let's open up and set the tone for the future. So just continue to improve, continue to work hard, and put that in each and every day.
And then before I let you go, Coach, what is your expectations this year for North Farmington football?
I want to win the league, make it to the playoffs, win some playoff games, beat the crosstown rival, all those things. I think those are all goals that you set each and every year. But you can't take it 1 week at a time. So it's just back to that. Hey, let's go out there and be the best team we can be. Let's go out and perform the best that we can. Kind of take that mantra, get them in, and get them out.
It'll be very interesting to see how that quarterback situation works with North Farmington. They also got concerns at running back as well. They do got some experience up front. Defensively, they should be solid as well. So when you look at the schedule for North Farmington, it's interesting. They open up the year week 1 with Livonia Stevenson. Last year, the Spartans beat the Raiders on a very controversial game. And it's a future Lakes Valley Conference opponent for them when North Farmington leaves the league next year, along with the Livonia schools who are also leaving to join the very same conference. So Livonia Stevens, it'll be an interesting game at Ron Holland Field this year between the Spartans and the Raiders. It was very tight last year, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that one goes. Week 2, they take on Wall Lake Western, and we know how good that the Warriors are. Loaded with talent, loaded with experience. Good news for the Raider fans. I think that game's at Ron Holland. So that'll be really interesting to see how that matchup's going to go. Especially your first 2 opponents are against future league members of the Lakes Valley Conference for next year. Week 3, Farmington Cup, first road game for North Farmington going out to Farmington to take on the Falcons. It's going to be a really really interesting matchup to see how that one goes. Last year, North Farmington knocked off Farmington in the Farmington Cup. They brought the cup back to North Farmington. Then week 4, they take on Bloomfield Hills. The Blackhawks are going to be a really interesting team. Obviously, the coaching matchup between Coach Scott Merchant and also Coach John Herstein, that's going to be really, really interesting. Week 5, they're going to take on Troy Athens. Of course, Athens and North went to the wire last year and Troy. So that should be really interesting when they make the trip over to Rotten Holland. So that'll be really interesting there. Week 6, they take on Birmingham Seaholm. Again, different styles. I mean, like the Veer taking on more of a spread type power look. So that should be an interesting game there between the Maples and the Raiders. Week 7, they take on Oak Park. That should be a good game. I think that'll be a really good game. Oak Park, we know, is loaded with athletes. A lot of proven athletes there over there with Oak Park. Week 8, they take on Oxford. It's going to be a really interesting matchup there. Usually, North's got to travel up to Oxford to take on the Wildcats, so that's going to be interesting there. And then week 9, to close out the year, they get Troy. Obviously, last year, North Farmington beat Troy, ending Troy's playoff hopes in their homecoming. Now North's got to go to Troy to take on the Colts. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Raiders perform. I think that quarterback situation I mentioned is something to watch between Terrence James, Stone Trevino, and Elijah Cobb. If James has to play quarterback, that spells trouble for North Farmington. I mean, obviously they got some proven pass catches as well. Rushing attack's a big question mark for North as well. So there's a lot of question for Coach John Herstein when you look at the Raiders going forward. So there's a lot of question marks when you look at this Raider team heading into the year. So now let's go from North Farmington, let's go to Oak Park. And when you look at the Knights this year, they got experience, and this is a 3-year project. Obviously, when you look at players like their quarterback, you got their running game back, you got proven pass catchers back. So here's Coach Greg Carter at the podium talking about the Knights.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Carter, a longtime coach in high school football, and to be quite honest, I've loved every minute of it. I've got a great group of young men here this year that are really thinking about getting our program back to the level that it was in the past. And they've worked extremely hard, not only in the summer, but in the weight room in the winter. And we're really excited about this team. We've been humbled by some very good programs in this league. And so it just gives us drive to get back on that level with you guys. So like everybody else has said, the OAA is fantastic. Scott, welcome. We do remember those Catholic League days when we battled. And so when you got hired, I was like, oh no, here it comes again. So I'm excited for you guys in this league. Like Coach Oden said, that this league prepares you for playoff opportunities. There's nothing that you haven't seen by the time you get to the playoffs. And we just are really excited to be a part of it. So I'm going to let the kids introduce themselves.
Muhammad Mubarak, quarterback 2027. Caden Taylor, receiver 2027. Rondre Austin, receiver DB 26. Carter Carrington, class 26, DB. Quinton Blakely, running back DB, class 26. Christian Ball, class 27, DB. William Reed, defensive tackle, class 26.
Well, thank you. We want to, again, thank Rochester High School for putting this on every year. It's getting better and better every year. We appreciate being here, and good luck to everybody in the OAA.
When you look at Oak Park, obviously they do return the quarterback Mohamed El Marah. He's a 3-year starter. They do got Quentin Bailey, of course, running back / defensive back. He's also a 3-year starter. You also got Rondre Austin, who is also a 3-year starter, wide receiver / DB. Also, you got William Reed, a big lineman over at Oak Park. Another great lineman to come out of that school. Obviously, with Oak Park, the biggest concern I have with them is depth. A lot of question marks is depth on that line is going to be the big question mark for Oak Park. They had the experience to be competitive, to get back to the playoffs for the first time since 2020 when they lost that crazy game. Started off the year 0-6, but then they made that playoff journey, getting to state semifinals before losing to Warren D. LaSalle in the state semifinals. They have not been the same since that game. And Oak Park's been trying to get back to where they've used to be, and I think they got a chance to do that. When you look at the schedule Oak Park's got this year, it's interesting. When you look at opening up the year with Farmington, they play the Falcons. That's going to be an interesting game. Oak Park lost that game last year because of their struggles on offense. And I think really you look at it here, offensively, the key for Oak Park is going to be the offense. If their offense clicks, they're going to be really dangerous to go along with that defense. And I think that's going to be a good game. I think that'll be a really good game between the Knights and Falcons. It's in Night Valley, so that'll be a 6 o'clock kickoff, which, of course, Oak Park, their games are usually played at 6 o'clock on Friday nights. So, that's a challenge for a lot of these teams if they got to go to Oak Park, is having to play those early games. So that's going to be really interesting there in week 1. Week 2, they take on Berkeley, and that's going to be an interesting matchup. Of course, Berkeley has got a lot of experience, but so does Oak Park. So that should be an interesting matchup there. Week 3, they take on Troy Athens. Of course, Athens is loaded with proven experience. So that should be an interesting matchup there between the Knights and Redhawks. Always has been. Week 4, they take on the Maples of Birmingham Seaholm. The Maples and Knights, they've always had some classics. Obviously, we know with Seaholm with the Veer. Oak Park, they like to go up and down. So it'll be a clash of styles there in that one. Week 5, they take on Troy. That should be an interesting game there. I think that should be a good game there between both those two teams, the Colts and the Knights. That should be a fun matchup there. Week 6, they take on the Fighting Irish of Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. And Coach Carter always loves to play very tough competition, especially in the non-conference. You've seen him play Detroit Cass Tech. You've seen him play against Orchard Lake St. Mary's. You've seen him play against Nova Detroit Catholic Central. He will play tough teams. Notre Dame Prep is a tough team. I think they were the D7 state champions last year. So the Fighting Irish, this is a very dangerous team that the Knights are going to have to deal with, obviously. So that'll be very interesting to see how that one goes. Should be a good game there between the Irish and the Knights. It'll be a really good game there. Week 7, they take on North Farmington. The Falcons, the Raiders and Knights, the coaching matchup between Coach Herstein and Coach Carter, that should be a fun matchup there. Week 8, Lake Orion's homecoming. They get to go to Lake Orion and take on the Dragons. That's going to be a tough matchup. Obviously, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup of two different styles. Coaching matchup between Coach Carter and Coach Bell is going to be really interesting. That should be a really interesting game for when Oak Park travels up I-75, M24 to Lake Orion to take on the Dragons. And then week 9, they close out the Blue Hills. The coaching matchup between Coach Merchant and Coach Carter from their days in the Catholic League. Obviously with Coach Merchant being at UD Jesuit, Coach Carter, of course, at St. Martin de Porres. That should be a fun matchup there. I think when you look at the Knights this year, they could really surprise some people this year with the experience they got. The only concern I have with them is going to be their program strength and also their depth. That's one of my biggest concerns I have with Oak Park. If they can address especially the depth up front, this could be a really dangerous team, especially with the athletes they have coming back. They have the secondary, they have the linebackers. It's just the lines up front. That's the biggest concern I have with Oak Park as we head into the season. So let's go now from Oak Park. Let's go to the Maples of Birmingham Seaholm. Of course, man, do I always love meeting Coach Jim DeWald. You look at this team last year, making the playoffs last year, after having a down year last year. So here is Seaholm coach Jim DeWald at the podium.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us out. Rochester High School, it's always a cool event. I'll kind of copycat everyone else, what they're saying. It's a fun league. This is so cool that this event's put on for the kids, the media day, and Sammy. It's always fun doing the podcast with you. It's really, really cool. Dunlap, where are you? You've been here for eons, so we appreciate all you guys do for high school sports. We've had a good off season like everyone else. We repeat everything. we're working our tail off since the end of last season till now. We get the kids off this week, but up until then, I thought we've had great leadership in the weight room. We've had a great culture being built in the weight room. We have a lot of guys to replace. We had basically we have 5 returning starters off of last year's team, but a lot of our guys are replacing with seniors that have a lot of experience with our system, so we're excited for that. So we brought some of those guys with us. We have Conrad Swanson, who is an A-back or slot back for us and a defensive back. Casey Getz is also a slot back and defensive back. Next to him, we have Max Kruger. Max is a starting center for us last year, defensive end, and he's a senior as well. And then Rocco Kolpa is our defensive back and also a slot back. These are some of our returners. We're looking forward to this season. As I said before, it's a tough league. You got to prepare each week. I think our kids enjoy the preparation each week and look forward to unfolding the game plan on Friday night. We start with Troy Athens. We wish everyone good luck, and hopefully everyone's ready to go in a couple weeks. Thank you.
When you get a shout out for Coach Dewald, that says a lot. When you look at Seaholm this year, Patrick Hughes at quarterback, Conrad Swanson, you got Max Kruger up front. So I think Seaholm's got the pieces to make some noise this year. So I talked to Coach Dewald on my podcast about the strength of Seaholm. You look at last year with Seaholm. Last year, you guys, a lot of people had you guys predict to have a down year, but you guys did not have a down year. You guys made the playoffs. We're in the division conversation. Recap last year for me, please.
Yeah, I thought our kids did a great job throughout the summer. We had a lot of kids to replace from the year before. And we obviously had a kid named Penn Roberts that was kind of our workhorse, if you will, on both sides of the ball. And, I thought our kids bonded well, played hard, and gave us a fighting chance in every game. And somehow, some way, in the fourth quarter, we found a way to pull out some of those games. We had some close fourth quarter games, and I was really proud of our kids. And I was actually pleasantly surprised of I think we started 6-0. I was very shocked with that.
Before I let you go, Coach, talk about the expectations over at Seaholm this upcoming season.
Well, our goal is to always, like everyone else, try to win our league and make the playoffs. That's the 2 big goals, and I think we can do those 2 things. We'll call that success. And then I always say, if you're playing in November, you had a pretty damn good year. Now, last year we played in November, but it was a earlier playoff setting. But it just always the goal was to play in November. I think November 1st was the first week of playoffs last year. So I always think the second week of playoffs is November. That's the one you really got to strive to get to. When we get there, I don't know. I've done this for a long time, and sometimes the ball bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. But I do know that our kids are preparing their ass off right now. They're working very hard. They worked out this morning. They'll work out all the way up into the first week of August. We'll give them that week off. They went through 2-a-days, which I think is pretty demanding for everybody. And they'll be ready to go that first week. And that first week when we have Avondale, we're gonna try to give them hell.
Always love talking to Coach Jim Dewald on the podcast. I mean, it's always entertaining. Always entertaining. It's always great to talk to him. When you look at the schedule for Seaholm, it's interesting. Open up the year week 1 with Troy Athens. Battle of different styles, obviously. That's a game that usually is like a season teller, obviously. So that's something to really keep an eye on there. Week 2, Maple Nation in the front of the Forest. They take on the Yellow Jackets of Auburn Hills Avondale. Obviously, at Seaholm they have one of the best atmospheres I've seen, of course, with the students at the north end zone. They have that big, beautiful building on the other side. Haven't been in the building yet, but I will get there when I get the chance to. But I've heard a lot of great things about the building at Seaholm, the home atmosphere there. Avondale week 2, that should be really interesting there. Week 3, they take on Bloom Bay Hills. That should be a fun one. Usually for Bloom Bay Hills, it's a short trip down Losser Road. So that should be really interesting there. That should be a good game. I think week 4, Oak Park. That should be another good game there. Obviously, Oak Park with the athletes. It's a clash of different styles, obviously. Week 5, they take on Farmington. We know Seaholm and Farmington have had some battles in the past, some classics. So it should be another classic. I know Seaholm goes to Farmington this year. Week number 6, North Farmington. I think they go to Ron Holland this year, so that should be really interesting there. We know North Farmington and Seaholm have had some classics as well. Week 7, they take on Troy. That should be an interesting one, though. I think it'll be a good game, I think, between those two teams. And then the gauntlet, starting week 8, when they take on Adams. It'll be a battle of veer teams, obviously. Both teams like to run time possession football, classic veer. That's a difficult match for Seaholm going up against Ryland Waters. And, of course, the coaching match between Coach DeWald and Coach Petrito. That should be really interesting. That could be like a ton of running football in that matchup there. And then week number 9, the rivalry game with Groves. Last year, Groves got Seaholm twice, including the playoffs. Usually these two teams will meet in the final week of the year and then end up playing each other week 10 in the playoffs. Groves, as I mentioned, won both meetings last year with Seaholm. 2 years ago, it was flipped. Seaholm won both meetings, of course. The first one was 21-14, and then that playoff matchup was 40. And that last playoff matchup was 56-49, and that was just insane. So when I look at Seaholm, team that loves to run the veer, play time possession football, they like to take their time offensively. I think Seaholm could be. They got some questions. They got to replace a lot of guys, and I think honestly, when I look at the Maples, they can make some noise. And I think that if they got to replace a ton of guys, especially on both sides of the ball. So that's a concern I have with Seaholm, is replacing a lot of guys. But if they do and they overcome some things, I think they could make some noise again this year. Like in the coaches poll, I know Seaholm is the favorite in the division, one of the favorites in the division. So something to really keep an eye on when you look at Coach Jim DeWald's team. It is a difficult team to figure out when they run the veer. It's an interesting, unique offense when you look at Seaholm. And obviously, I know their defensive coordinator, Spencer Adams, really well. Of course, he's also the boys basketball coach for Seaholm. So that's also another subplot to really keep an eye on as well. So we'll see what happens. Now we go from Seaholm, we go to Troy now. When you look at the Colts last year, this has been a team that's been almost like the movie Game of Thrones, just not getting the inches trying to get in the playoffs. Last 2 years it's happened to them. 2 years ago, it was Frazier. Last second touchdown. Last year, running in North Farmington, they got blown out by North Farmington. So here's Coach Chris Frazier talking about the Colts at Media Day and, what the questions that this team faces.
All right, my name is Chris Frazier. I'm the proud head coach at Troy High School, my alma mater. So I brought 4 senior leaders with us. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Ryan Christensen, linebacker and tight end. Evan Bariak, receiver, DB. Mike Walensky, O-line D-line. Cameron Gillespie, O-line D-line.
So just like everyone else, we're obviously excited for the season starts, and I'm proud of these young men, all the work they put in. And my message today, kind of similar to the last couple of years, is I just want to take the time to thank all of you young men for all the efforts that you put in, because without everything you do, old guys like us couldn't stand up here and coach football and do those things. So we appreciate the time and the efforts you put in. I know it's a lot. It's a lot of film work. It's a lot of weight room stuff. So thank you for all the efforts you put in. Good luck to everyone this year. Thank you.
When you look at Troy this year, they got some questions. Quarterback's a big question mark. They've got to replace the rushing attack looks solid. They got some proven pass catchers. Line's a big question mark. There's a lot of question marks at Troy. And when I talked to Coach Frazier in the podcast, there was some optimism with this team. What is the mantra this year, the theme for Troy football this upcoming season?
I don't necessarily know if we have a specific slogan or mantra or things like that, but every year, people ask me, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? And we just want to compete. Again, obviously losing 9 games is not ideal, but if you're competitive every game, then so be it. So our mantra, what we're trying to instill in the boys is we're going to compete no matter what the score is. We've had some we've had some situations this summer where we use it as a learning experience. Like, hey, this is a competition, and things in life might not always go your way, and it might not be easy, but you're going to have to compete no matter what. So that's kind of the goals that we're trying to instill in the boys, and maybe you can call that our mantra, is just being competitive no matter what the situation in life or what the score on a football field is.
Before I let you go, Coach, what is the expectations this year for Troy football?
Well, again, similar to 5 minutes ago talking, I think the biggest expectation is we need to, as a staff, as a team, as players, learn how to compete no matter what the score is. So if week 1 we're down by 50, then we need to compete. If week 1 we're up by 50, we need to compete, So I think that's the expectation, and that's one of those, non-negotiables, you know what I mean? So we need to be able to compete, and we're going to try to add some things in practice this year and in camp this year to kind of help establish the idea of competition, because I don't necessarily know, if that's been the case.
When you look at Troy's schedule this year, there is a lot of tough matchups for Troy. They open up the year week 1 with Olympia Hills. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. Curious to see how these are two teams that are it's going to be an even matchup, I think. It'll be a really interesting matchup. Now, what I noticed with the schedule, Troy's non-conference slate, the 3 non-conferences are early in the year. Week 2, they got a tough matchup with Ferndale. And that is a difficult matchup, obviously, for a young team like Troy who's got to replace a lot of talent. And that's going to be difficult for them. Ferndale, obviously, is also a young team as well. But with Coach Donovan Jackson, it'll be really interesting to see how that one goes. Week 3, they take on Flint Powers. Flint Powers, obviously, they're a solid team. They're an independent. Obviously, with their basketball and other sports in the Saginaw Valley Conference and football, they're an independent. So that should be a fun matchup there. It should be really interesting there. Week 4, oh boy. Got to play Clarkson. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. It'll be a tough task for them. They got Clarkson coming to Troy, though. That's going to be a really, really tough task. They're going to have their hands full in that one. Week 5, they take on Oak Park. That should be an interesting matchup. Both teams, obviously. It should be an interesting game between those two. Week 6, they take on Farmington. Again, another interesting game. I think that, Troy and Farmington, they've had some battles in the past. Week 7, Birmingham Seaholm. Tough matchup for Troy going up against a team that runs the Veer. Seaholm's had Troy's number the last few years. Especially a lot of that's been the Veer. Week 8, the rivalry game with Troy Athens. Troy heading to Troy Athens this year. That should be another interesting game. Of course, Troy's had Troy Athens' number lately. So that should be an interesting game. And then week 9, they close out the year with North Farmington. It was North Farmington on their homecoming that knocked Troy out of the playoffs last year. So for Coach Frazier and the Colts this year, it's a brand new team, a lot of work to do. Defensively is a concern, program strength's a concern. This is a team that's got a lot of concerns heading into the year. And, it's going to take some time for them to grow and to build. The quarterback situation's a big question mark. There's just so many questions that Troy has this year when you look at it with this team. So a lot of question marks with the Colts heading into the year. So when you look at the projections in the blue this year, I got some big concerns with some of these teams. But I also got some optimism. It would not surprise me if 5 teams in this division make the playoffs. Now, in the coaches poll, they do have Oak Park. In the coaches poll, they do have Oak Park. They have North Farmington as a favorite. I think North Farmington and Oak Park are going to co-win this division. I just think the reason why I say is Oak Park's got a lot of experience coming back. As mentioned, they got the athletes, they got the experience. The line up front's a big question mark for them. I think there's going to be some question marks there with them. Athens, people say, Sammy, why do you have Athens ranked so high? Senior experience matters. Nathan Pickett stays healthy. That is easily a 6-win team when you look at Troy Athens. They got the defense back. Defense is my biggest concern with heading into the year, but I think 6 wins, getting the playoffs is a big deal. North Farmington, obviously, if Terrence James has to play quarterback, that's a problem. I think the schedule is very daunting for them, especially late in the year. So we'll see with them. Farmington, I expect them to be a playoff team. Seaholm, you know, as I talked to Coach Jamal on the podcast, he did mention to me that they had to replace several key pieces from that team. So there is a concern there. I think that they are I think they're going to win 4, but I think they're going to get in the playoffs. I think that, I think Seaholm, obviously, they're a dangerous team if they do get in the playoffs. Bloomfield Hills, I expect better things with them. I think they're going to get 3 wins for sure. But when I look at Coach Merchant's team, it's going to take some time, take some patience. Troy, I got him going the over. I mean, when you look at Troy, there's so many questions with Troy heading into the year. There's just a ton of questions when I look at the Colts. And there is a lot when you look at the question marks with Troy. So, so I think right now, can this change? Absolutely. Can Seaholm surprise, go up in the rankings? Yes. Can Troy Atlas take a hit? Maybe. I mean, there's just so many questions right now with this division. But when I look at this division, I think 5 teams got a great shot at making the playoffs. And, could Blooming Hills get in the playoffs? Absolutely. You know what I mean? So, but right now, when I look at this division, I think there's just a lot of question marks with this team. So, a lot to look at. Of course, the top 10 rankings, of course, are up on the blog at blogspot.com. Also, we're going to keep an eye on it. We got the white coming up soon, and then also the red as well. So I wish everybody the best of luck in the blue division this year. And wish everybody best of luck. Take care, God bless, and I will see you all next week.